Hi guys, welcome back to the Stir the Pot podcast with Nivoja, where we discuss topics relating to relationship, mindset, and money. Today we will go into our fourth episode where we talk about polarity. So far we've been getting some good support from our community. Please continue to like, subscribe, and share, folks. As usual, we're here to add value to all of those people who listen when it comes on to those topics in life. Of course, we explore those topics that people really talk about that will contribute more towards effective relationships, solid mindset, and better money management. So with no further ado, we'll jump right into today's topic and get it going. So today's topic is on polarity, right? And we're going down into the whole opposite of thing when it comes on to the genders. And of course, as you all know, we're all cultured to believe that relationships, especially intimate relationships, should be formed on the basis of similarities. We're told that, hey, if you're looking for somebody to start an intimate relationship with, they must have the same vision, the same goals, the same dreams, the same ambitions, all of those things. And I'm here to say, I'm not here to debunk that. Of course, those things are very, very important when forming relationships. But I feel there's or should I say, I think there is a forgotten side to things that is very important when it comes on to forming these relationships. And it really speaks to polarity. Now, in the realm of polarity, we come up with the idea of things that are complementary between the sexes and often conflicting as well. I think if we're to lean into these topics, we will have more fulfilling relationships as we'll be able to delve into the varying factors and dynamics of our nature, meaning the nature between the both sexes. And we are able to, discuss these in more depth so we can gain more appreciation about, what makes us different and what actually complements or add to an effective relationship. I don't think we discuss these things much when it comes on to relationships, and that is why I am of the view that there are a lot of relationships nowadays that, quite frankly, are very ineffective. We often hear a lot of people say they are unhappy in relationships. They are basically just winging it as they go by. They don't have any passions. They're basically not even seeing the benefit of being in a lot of the relationships. And I'm of the view that if even early on in the dating period in a relationship, we should be able to discuss these factors in detail in some respects, where we can, as I said, gain a more appreciation for the differences between the natures, especially between the sexes. So one of the things I'm here today to talk about is some of these factors, just to ask the questions and to see how they actually contribute to a more, as I said, efficient or effective relationship. All right, so as per episode one, I did go down in the whole commerce of relationship thing. I mean, I'll try and put a link to that video somewhere. We know that relationships are about an exchange of value. Now, one of the things I mentioned as well is in the whole exchange of value process, we all have to bear in mind that we often go for what we don't have. Hence the beginning of the whole polarity factor when it comes on in relationships. We go for what complements us rather than what is similar to us. But as I said, society teaches us that we should go for what's similar. Now, I'm a man, of course, I'm going to go for a woman in a relationship. She is my polar opposite. That's what it's supposed to be, right? From the whole matter of intercourse to even our frame as human beings ought to be different in order to make the relationship more effective. So as per episode one, as I said, we go for what we don't have. This is one factor I hear people not talking about in relationships. In relationships, you go for what you don't have. All right. So I don't have a feminine mindset. So whoever I choose as a companion, they will have to have a feminine mindset, right? I have a masculine frame, so I will go for somebody who is feminine. I have, a strong upper body, upper strength. I don't really need somebody with that. So I'm gonna go for a woman who is more soft and more beautiful and more demure in their approach to life. And as I said, I realize that most people are not focused on these things. Society is teaching us that, between the sexes, we need to be similar. We need to have the same, proclivities. We need to approach things the same way. And while there may be some value to that, as I said, one of the core factors in relationships is actually looking at the polar opposites of what we bring to the relationship. Just like in business, if you already have something in you in terms of what you bring to a business, you don't really need that again, unless you're scaling it, of course, scaling the business. As such, when you're hiring people or other, other items or persons you might need in the business, you get support staff, which is to complement you. So that is the factor that I think that most people are forgetting when it comes on to relationships. I'll just get into a few of them just to sell the point here. One of them, I mentioned it earlier. So, for instance, one of the opposites between both of the sexes in the relationship is just by even strength, right? We know that women are generally the more vulnerable sex when it comes on to relationship, generally speaking, of course. I know some women are not going to like when we say that, but it definitely is based on research. Men generally have, stronger upper body strength, and that's geared towards protection, which is what women need. Men don't need protection in relationships. All right, women are the ones who generally go for that protection, security. They have the feeling to be safe. They're not going to get that from another woman generally. So automatically, that's where the polar opposites or the complementary factor comes in. For men, we may need somebody who is softer, more nurturing, those kind of things, We notice men are not the biggest person focused on health. And of course, the woman with the more nurturing aspects of things will be able to contribute to that factor when it comes on to a man's life. So that's one of the factors here where they are polar opposites, but they are complementary as well. I mean, another issue with polar opposites, it tends to bring about conflicts as well. And of course, in relationship, there will always be conflict. Having these discussions up front as well will also result in better conflict management. All right, so that's one of the factors there. We can also look at the basis on which the sexes operate. Generally, men are driven by logics. Women are generally driven by emotions. Both are polar opposites. Now, they have the potential to either be complementary factors to each other, or they can cause a lot of conflict. Now, of course, having the discussions about the various factors when it comes on to that is also a similar thing. I won't get down into that. I'll leave the whole psychiatrists and counselors and those things to deal with that. But I'm just here to mention it that, hey guys, at the end of the day, yes, we are cultured to think that we need to be the same. But one of the roots of an effective relationship is understanding and having an appreciation of the polarity or the opposite nature that can complement each other and make a relationship more solid, right? And as I said, most people are not talking about these topics. Okay, next one. Let's look at one of these more controversial aspect. Men's propensity for violence. As you know, with that testosterone pumping in our blood and all of that, we are naturally the gender that will be having a more increased propensity for violence and less tolerance of bullshit and all of those things. Yes, I said it. Now, this propensity for violence can be a complementary factor because at the end of the day, if me and my companion is sleeping in the bedroom at 2 o'clock in the morning and we hear somebody breaking in, it's my propensity for violence that will offer the protection and the security in that situation. A complementary factor, I'm sure women like those things because at the end of the day, it speaks to the protection dynamic in which they desire in relationships. Yes? Hormones is another thing. as I mentioned, men are generally driven by testosterone, women by estrogen and progesterone, which, actually contribute to some of our natural proclivities as well. I'm not going to speak about the one-off situation where a woman's testosterone level may be higher than the man. We're here talking about the general factors when it comes on to these things. So, as I said, in understanding these things and having the discussions around them, we might be able to, unearth those polarities in the relationship and see where they can complement each other, where those things are concerned. A man generally is supposed to have the masculine frame, a woman is supposed to have the feminine frame. These discussions, I believe, should be happening right up front in the dating frame or the dating phase of a relationship, so that later on we can, as I said, understand and have a more appreciation of these factors. Again, folks, as I said, society likes to focus more on us being similar. Men and women are innately different, and as such, we need to lean into these differences where we can maximize those polarities so that they contribute more towards, as I say, a better and more effective relationships. I believe we should have those conversations, folks, and bring those things to light early on in relationships so they can be discussed fully and be more open with the communication surrounding these things. So that's a short one for today, folks. Never got down too deep in it, but hopefully I added some values there. Remember, guys, like, subscribe, share as needed, and see you on the next episode.